Hi everyone. I just want to say thank you for coming and taking time out of your days to watch me talk about something. Like, you could have been anywhere in the world right now and you're here watching me talk about books and design and things. I suspect some of you may have just come for the free croissants, but even so, you're prepared to sit through me for a free croissant, so thank you. A word of warning, I'm a terrible, dreadful procrastinator. I found out 3 or 4 weeks ago that I was going to be giving this talk, and I thought, okay, I've got almost a month, I'm going to prepare, I'm going to put some awesome slides together, I'm going to rehearse, it's going to be amazing, I'm going to be really slick, well prepared, and obviously that didn't quite happen. So at 9 o'clock last night, I was sat in front of the computer thinking, fuck, what am I actually going to talk about? And literally 12 hours ago, these were my notes. A massive thank you. And what comes next? What am I actually going to talk about? So just to regulate everyone's expectations, it may not be the best talk you've ever seen. I hope it is, but I'm slightly winging it. So apologies in advance if it's a bit rubbish. Anyway. So I was racking my brains, what am I going to talk about? The theme is ink, so I guess I should talk about ink in some way. This slide is relatively pointless, it's got the word ink on it. And I've scoured my bookshelves for a book that had the word ink in it, and then I scanned it in. That was part of my procrastination. There was no real benefit to it. I just wanted to have a page of a book. This is a book that I've designed. I've actually typeset this book. And scan the page in, there's the word ink. So anyway, okay, got to remind myself what's coming next. So I'm a book cover designer. I work at Penguin, which is amazing. I think we publish some of the best books in the world, and I'm incredibly proud to work there. I first got into book design when I was at university, and in my final year of uni they said you can do whatever you want, pick a project and do it. And I decided I wanted to design some books. And it was around this time that ebooks were just really taking off, and there were lots of questions about, is this the end of print? Ink versus pixel print versus digital, that kind of thing. Books versus ebooks. And I wanted to design a really nice set of books, and I decided to set up my own publishing company. And the whole idea was, we don't do ebooks. It's celebrating print, making the most of the physical book, making it the best thing it could possibly be. And so this is kind of embarrassing. I really cringe when I show this work now. But I designed a set of 5 books, and they were hardbacks and they were hand-made, hand-bound, and I really tried to make the most of what print has, which digital doesn't. So the covers were incredibly tactile. They were made entirely of paper. I don't know if you can see this on the image, but it's actually layers of paper that have been cut. So there's kind of a blue layer on top, and there's a shape cut out of that, and then there's another red layer of card underneath, and another layer of card underneath that. So there's kind of 3 layers of card, and they're kind of cut away, and the paper's ridiculously heavy and thick and tactile and lovely to touch. And it was all about just kind of making the most bookish book I could, in a way. And so I made 5 of these, and I set up my own fictional It wasn't fiction, it was a real thing, a real publishing company. And I even, I made a website and I made some silly animations to promote these books. And I'm so embarrassed to show this, but this is an animation I made like 6 years ago on the theme of books versus ebooks. And it looks like this.
My name's Walter. I'm a book.
And my name is the eText 5000 Pro, and I am all the ebooks you've ever dreamed of.
I am tactile. Everyone comments on the texture of my paper and the quality of the materials I'm made from.
Yes, me too. The ladies love stroking my hard plastic exterior.
And I come with that new book smell that everyone seems to love.
I smell too, you know. People can't get enough of sniffing my pixels. Ah, yes, the sweet aroma of my pixels.
So, anyway, yeah, that happens. So the point that I'm trying to make with all this is that I was staunchly anti-ebook. I didn't like the idea of ebooks. I didn't like the idea of reading on the screen. I love printed books. There's just something wonderful about that printed tactile format. And this was my kind of response to that. I made a whole series of these animations. I'm not going to show you the rest because they're so bad. But anyway, the point is, I was very anti-ebook. And then I ended up getting a job at Penguin. That was my kind of big final project at university. Shortly after that, I ended up getting a job at Penguin through slightly unusual means, perhaps. After I'd done this project, I started following all the book cover designers that I admired on Twitter. One of those was Coralie Bickford-Smith, who works at Penguin. And one day, she tweeted this, looking for a typographer who can animate. Can anyone recommend anyone? And I slightly cheekily, slightly arrogantly tweeted back saying, I recommend myself. I'm a typographer who can animate. And from there, it turned out Penguin were looking for a freelancer just to make some small freelance animation for them. But from there I got talking to Coralie, and she mentioned casually that they had a vacancy at Penguin for a junior cover designer. So I got very excited about that. I thought, I want to be that junior cover designer. But then Coralie mentioned that the deadline was 3 weeks ago. So I was a bit late. But I didn't let that stop me. I thought I'm going to apply anyway, got nothing to lose. And so I made this book. I really like making books. So it's this small, totally handmade 36-page book, and it tells the story of how I found out about the job and how I was too late to apply for it, and basically could I please apply anyway. And the book was written directly to Mr. Jim Stoddart, who is the art director at Penguin. He's one of the art directors at Penguin. He's my boss. So the book was written to Jim, and I put stupid things like this in it. That's a drawing of Coralie. That's Coralie's face. And it turns out if you draw an existing employee with a speech bubble saying you should really hire me, I'm really great, then it works. I didn't even draw Coralie. I can't draw that well. This is a terrible thing to confess. But I got my girlfriend to draw that. I tried, and it was so bad. It looked like a monster. It didn't look like Coralie at all. And I didn't know what to put on the last page. I had a blank page at the very end of the book. So I put in tiny letters right in the middle of the page, "Go on, hire me." It was really not very subtle, but it did the job, and I got the job. And now I have my kind of dream job. I'm designing book covers at Penguin. which is amazing. And I've been there sort of over 4 years now, and I've progressed from junior cover designer. I'm just a cover designer now, no junior, which is nice. And yeah, so I've been designing covers for Penguin for several years. I'm not actually going to show any of them because I didn't want it to be all, and I designed this cover, and then I designed this cover, and look at my work. So if you wanted to see lots of interesting covers, sorry, I'm probably going to disappoint you slightly. But at some point, I started wanting to do more than just the covers. You know, I designed a cover for a book, and then, you know, you design the cover way in advance. You design the cover like 9 months in advance, ideally. It doesn't always work like that. And then you wait for ages, and then the printed book comes in, and that's a really exciting feeling when the book comes in. You can hold it in your hands for the first time, and you know you feel really proud of this thing that you've designed. But then sometimes I'd open it up, and the way it was typeset inside, there'd be nothing wrong with it, but it would just feel very different to the cover. It's like they weren't speaking the same language. It's things like, you know, if I've used Futura on the cover, maybe I want to use Futura for the chapter headings inside. You know, I mentioned that I'm a bit obsessive and pedantic, and so I wanted to have the insides and the outside have more consistency, you know, to speak the same language. So I started trying to get involved in the typesetting of books as well a little bit, which I was given the opportunity to do, and it's not really my job description, but Penguin allowed me to do it, and I'm really, really grateful for that. A strange thing happened at some point over the last 4 years. Since I've been working at Penguin, I've started reading ebooks. I read loads of ebooks now, and I still love printed books, but I love the convenience of being able to have a book in my pocket and not have to carry an extra book around with me. I can just read on my phone, and I can read anywhere, anytime, and I love the convenience of being able to read on the screen. But I started to get really frustrated with the typesetting of the ebooks. Things like this, you know, that really, really bothers me. And also things like this. This is okay. A normal reader wouldn't be upset by this. You can still read the text. You can still read the book. But the text is fully justified, which is fine in a book. In a printed book, you would expect the text to be fully justified. But on a screen, especially one that small, you get these enormous gaps between words. And it looks terrible, and it doesn't make for a nice, comfortable reading experience. Things like this. I must confess, I've picked the worst examples I could find. And these aren't Penguin ebooks. These are like free ebooks that I found on the Kindle store. So this isn't a typical representation, perhaps. But things like this. This is an extract, a verse extract, and in print, the kind of the typical way you would set that in a book is to indent it slightly. And that's what they've done with the ebook as well. But because they've indented it, you've got this massive gap on the left, and then all the text is squashed up on the right. And it's italic, and it's fully justified, and just what the hell is going on there? And so I was getting increasingly frustrated with ebooks. And as a cover designer, I was worried about actually what role does the cover have in an ebook. A lot of the time it kind of feels like the cover is just that thing that you click on to open the book, but then once you're reading the cover, you know, you never see it again. Actually, if you open an ebook, it takes, like, for example, this is one of our ebooks. You open it up, it takes you to this page. To get to the cover, if you want to see the cover, you have to go back. So you have to scroll back through this page, which is just a blank page, the acknowledgements. This is, I don't know what this is, but this is the table of contents. Okay, yeah, the table of contents, which goes on for a while, and then another blank page, and then eventually, okay, you get the cover of the book. But it feels really kind of redundant. The cover doesn't have much of a role to play here, which I think is a real shame. And also, the cover, it's got this big white border around it. It might look better if it was slightly bigger, like that. But also, because it's a fixed size, it never fills the whole screen. Phones aren't the same size as books, and Kindles and other devices aren't the same size as books. So you never get that, which it could fill the whole screen and be a really nice thing. And that works for a cover like this. But for a lot of covers, the text would be cut off, or an important part of the image would be cut off, and that just wouldn't work. So anyway, I was thinking about all these things. My frustrations with ebooks, how the reading experience isn't as good as it could be, how the covers don't have an important role to play. And all these thoughts were going around in my head when my boss, Jim, told us that Pelican was coming back. For those who don't know, Pelican was one of the kind of big imprints at Penguin. There was Penguin, Puffin, which was children's books, and Pelican, which was more academic, slightly more educational, non-fiction books. And Penguin and Puffin have been going forever, but Pelican was discontinued in the 80s because, I don't know why, because they weren't selling enough books or they wanted to do something different, who knows. But last year, Pelican was relaunched. They decided to bring it back, give it a new lease of life, and when I found out this was happening, I got very excited. And the brief from Jim was that we want to make these books distinctive and we want to make these books accessible, and to appeal to a slightly young audience. And so I thought, okay, if we really want to make these books accessible, what if we made them available to read online? Not like a typical ebook, which you kind of buy online and then read offline. But what if the whole book was like a website, a web page? And actually, if it was a web page, we could have much more control over the typesetting, the typography, the way the book is presented. And this is terrible, but I mocked up a really quick example, just showing what one of the books could look like if it were a web page. And this was like the very, very first prototype that I built. And from there, I kind of pitched it to my colleagues at Penguin, and they were really supportive. And then eventually, kind of 18 months later, we launched pelicanbooks.com, which is a website where you can go and read the books. You go to pelicanbooks.com, you can read the books straight away, right there in your web browser. And because it's a website, it's completely cross-platform. It works on any device. It works at any screen size. And I spent ages tweaking the typography, trying to make sure that the reading experience is as good as it possibly can be for any screen size, any device, any browser. And so the kind of basic book looks like this, and it ties in really closely with the paperbacks. So this is the ebook and this is the paperback version. You can see we're using the same typeface for the body text, the same typeface for the subheadings and so on. And these typefaces were chosen because they work really well, not just in print but also on screen. And things like diagrams, because these are non-fiction books, they often contain quite a few diagrams, charts, maps, that kind of thing. And this is the regular ebook on the left, and you can see that the diagram is it's tiny and it's really hard to read, and it's black and white because the books are printed one colour. The books are black and white, the physical paperback books. And the way it typically works is you design the book first, and then that gets automatically turned into an ebook. But if you've got a black and white diagram in the book, then you end up with a black and white diagram in the ebook too. And you don't need to have a black and white diagram in the ebook, it could be colour. And in the regular ebook, it's kind of squashed into that much space, and that text is hard to read or perhaps completely illegible. So I tried to build a better version, basically. So the one on the right is what you get if you read the book at pelicanbooks.com. and you can see it takes the full screen. You can swipe left and right to see the other parts of the diagram, but it's just much easier to read and understand. And of course, it works at any screen size. Also, you can do things like this, just a simple bit of animation to show that ball rolling down that landscape, Waddington's epigenetic landscape. If you know what that means, well done, you're much cleverer than I am. But yeah, just the ability to add that tiny bit of animation communicates the kind of the message so much more clearly. And footnotes are also something that I found really frustrating in ebooks. You might notice here there's a little asterisk about just above the halfway point on that page. If you click that, in the paperback book, that asterisk means there's a footnote at the bottom of the page. But in the ebook, footnotes aren't treated like that. If you click that asterisk, you get taken to a separate page with all the footnotes for that chapter. Now, okay, here there's only two, but you don't instantly know which of those two notes is relating to that bit of text that you were just reading back here. If you've got a dozen footnotes in that chapter, you'd have a dozen footnotes here, and it'd be really confusing to try to figure out which one was the right one. So you read that, and then you have to click the tiny little asterisk again, and it takes you back to your chapter. But your position has moved slightly. Now the asterisk is up here. I don't know why it's moved. Before it was lower down, but the ebook app thinks it's being helpful by doing that. But I think there's a better way, which is like this. So in the version that we made, you click the asterisk and the footnote slides up at the foot of the screen, much more like it would in the paperback. So just simple things like that. These are the covers. The covers are responsive, just like the type inside the books. The covers are responsive too, so they work at any screen size. They can fill the whole of the screen. Again, they match up really nicely with the paperbacks. So there's a kind of coherent and distinctive and consistent visual language across all formats of the book. This is what the table of contents looks like. And actually, I wanted the cover to be more than just that thing that you click on to access the book. So we tried to make every chapter is another cover in a way. So every time you start reading a new chapter, you get the chapter title in big letters like this in the same style as the cover. So it reinforces that cover image or that cover style every time you open a new chapter. And that's kind of all I have to say, really. Apart from the fact that I'm a massive hypocrite. I started off saying I was, staunchly anti-ebooks, and now I'm saying actually I think ebooks are amazing and they have amazing potential. I love reading ebooks, but I think they're still not yet as good as they could be. I'm really proud of what we've built with Pelican, but it's still not as good as it could be. There's still so much more that we could do. I think the kind of problem is ebooks, when they first came along, they were trying really hard to imitate print in a way. It's like when the first printing press was invented, the things that they printed were designed to imitate handwritten manuscripts, and it took kind of 100 years or more before books stopped trying to imitate handwriting and handwritten manuscripts and started becoming their own thing, the book as we might recognise it today. I think it's kind of the same with ebooks. At first they were trying to imitate print books. Ebook apps came complete with that fake page turn animation, and the typesetting was trying to imitate print. Like the text was fully justified and it didn't need to be. And on the one hand, I think I'm saying ebooks need to stop imitating printed books. But then, on the other hand, I'm saying actually ebooks need to tie in really closely with the printed books, which is what we've tried to do with Pelican. We need to try and close the gap between printed books and digital books. It shouldn't be books versus ebooks. It should be books and ebooks. There shouldn't be a divide between the two. They should try and be closer together. So anyway, sorry, I'm just rambling on now. This is why I should have rehearsed. But yeah, there we go. Thank you very much. Q&A?
Q&A, yes, I'm sure you have lots of questions.
Does anyone have any questions? Yeah?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Cool. I was wondering, how come you didn't take notice or take advantage of ebooks, just the cover design from the beginning? I would have thought that you'd have seen that as a perfect opportunity to do illustration in a completely new medium. Just curious, and then do you take that forward now in different with different technologies as well?
Can I repeat the question? So, if I can remember the question, there are sort of two parts to it, right?
Yes.
Why?
How come? Not why.
How come we didn't take advantage of ebooks sooner, or kind of explore the covers?
The design.
The design of ebooks soon, yeah. Well, I think personally, I didn't explore that sooner because I was very anti-ebook. I just had this idea in my head that ebooks were bad and that they weren't as good as printed books. And so I didn't really start considering ebooks and the design of ebooks until a couple of years ago, really. I think Penguin as a whole, they did consider ebooks very early. I've actually seen a Penguin ebook from like 1995, which was on a floppy disk, which was kind of incredible. So they have been thinking about it for a long time, and they have been experimenting with things like that floppy disk. Don't know how you fit a whole book on a floppy disk. Maybe you can. I think there are lots of opportunities with ebooks and with the design of ebooks especially, and especially for the covers. I think it kind of presents this new challenge because the covers are usually seen on screen, they're often seen about the size of a postage stamp. So what can you communicate, what's the best way to communicate in such a small area? And I think that's part of the reason why the Pelicans are type only. It's just big, bold type on a blue background. And there's no kind of photography or illustration because that might not work so well as a thumbnail. But actually, I think it would. I'm not saying all book covers have to just be big type on a plain background. I think there's loads of opportunity for ebook design to really kind of break the mold, and there's opportunity to do something exciting with it. And I don't know what that is exactly, but I can't wait to see what happens next. I think it will evolve beyond just the thumbnail on the Amazon page or whatever.
Yes.
I'm interested because when you say that more can be done with ebook, because currently you're just doing the same as a book, and also with the liquid layout and all that. But the opportunities of what can be done interaction-wise with an ebook, it's not being exploited, you're just getting the same information in the same means. The image might be a GIF or whatever, or a video, but it's not going with the layers and the interaction. So how long are they going to take? But I've seen a few conversations and they're like stuck. It's like they can't move forward somehow.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think there's so much you can do with making ebooks more interactive, making the data kind of richer. Instead of just showing the same diagram as in the print book, but making it colour and making it slightly easier to read on screen, that diagram could be interactive. So it's like a diagram of the human brain or something, you could spin it around. If it was a diagram showing rainfall across a period of years, you could actually make that interactive, so you can adjust the slider at the bottom, so you can see how the rainfall has changed over a period of years. It doesn't have to be a static diagram. It doesn't have to be a GIF. It could be interactive. It could be there are examples out there. There's some really good ebook apps that do that kind of thing, where they make it really interactive, and like encyclopedia type apps, where you can explore things in a lot more detail. I think there are opportunities there. I think the trouble at the moment is we're really limited by the existing kind of infrastructure, the existing e-reader apps and devices, like the Kindles, the Kindle app, the iBooks app, all sorts of other e-reading apps, and the EPUB specification doesn't allow you to do those really rich interactive things yet.
Would there maybe be an opportunity, to forget about ebooks as a format and be focus on mobile and the opportunity of web browsing? Because although you have that think through coding and what's happening now, you can take it, instead of having to limit yourself to the ebooks, forget the ebooks and focus on the phone to deliver the content.
Well, that's exactly what we try to do with Pelican, and I think I'm really proud of what we've got, but it's only the first stage, and I think there's so much more we could do. We did it on an incredibly tiny budget as well, so this is just kind of Mark 1. But yeah, I think we can kind of. It's interesting what you can do if you say, okay, let's forget the EPUB specification and try and just start from scratch. Okay, if the book were a web page, if it were in the browser, what could you do? And yeah, it opens up a lot of new opportunities.
Are you actually doing anything with the data that the reader produces? So let's say, for example, to improve like next books and so on, that, I don't know, if 50% of the readers drop out after like page 200, then we should make books shorter.
Yeah, exactly. Because it's a website, we can track analytics. We have access to analytics, so we can see how many people are reading which books. We can see which books perform the best. We can see, okay, if everyone drops off in chapter 4 is obviously, maybe it's a boring chapter, or maybe it's just that the book is too long, like you suggested, or maybe there's another reason why people are dropping off in chapter 4. But yeah, we have much more insight into how people are reading the books, and we can use that to make the books better, definitely.
Do you actually go to the next author and say, like, these are the insights, and then you should modify your book like that? Or?
Kind of. I would go to the editor of the book, so I can work really closely with the editor and say, look, we've noticed this is happening, or we've noticed this trend in the way people are reading these books. Maybe we could suggest that an author tries to structure something slightly differently, or something like that. Yeah, absolutely, that can happen. It hasn't happened yet because this is relatively new. We only launched it a few months ago, so we don't have vast amounts of data yet. But we are noticing some interesting kind of reading habits emerging, and yeah, that can. I hope it does inform the books that are produced next. Yeah.
The last question really quick, and then we're going to take the rest of the questions. Go ahead.
So people often choose a print book by the cover.
Yeah.
Has Penguin looked at, do people choose an ebook by the cover? And does Penguin play around with the different covers to see which ones are more sort of the same book in different on different sites, and see which ones are more
One,
successful?
isn't it? Just look at the label. Yep, that's decent. Okay.
Kind of, yeah. Yes, we do. The Penguin has a whole team of people who do research into this kind of thing, and they research what works well and what doesn't, not just in terms of the cover, but in terms of the whole book. Yeah, great attention is paid to the cover and how it works in the physical bookshop and in the online bookshop, and yeah, I think there are all sorts of theories about what works well as an ebook cover. I don't know if any of them are definitively right. I think it still depends what the book is. You still want a cover to represent the book, represent the content of the book, be an appropriate cover for the work that the author has written. But, yeah, sorry, does that answer the question?
How do you use different covers on the, for example, on the ebooks and on the physical book?
Yeah, there have been occasions where we've used different covers for the physical book and the ebook. Yeah, there was a cover I did a while ago where the physical book had no text on it. It was actually just an illustration. There was no author, no title. And we decided that didn't work as well for the ebook. So actually for the ebook we put a slightly different cover up. Same image but with the title of the author. So yes, we do kind of experiment like that sometimes.
Well, we can take the rest of the questions with coffee. Thank you so much. That was great.